You can never take winning for granted in this league. And as sloppy as some of the play was out there today, I love the effort of our guys, the resiliency of our guys, the ability just to respond to some adversity, I think is huge. Obviously, that's a playoff caliber football team. I think one of the best teams in the league. And, we'll never apologize for winning.
It's a team win. It's a four-quarter battle. It wasn't perfect. Definitely was not perfect. A lot of mistakes, but, we found a way to win, and that's what it's all about. That's what it comes down to is fourth quarter and finding a way. And that's what we did.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's a cut from Matt LaFleur and a cut from Jordan Love yesterday after the game. I'm really gravitating this season towards commentary from coaches and analysts that hammer the point home. It's hard to win in this league. Any comment, any take that is connected to that idea of thinking about how hard it is to win in the NFL. Because we've talked about this before. I don't need to rehash this whole conversation. But this is the first year in a couple years where we're coming in with expectations of winning, expectations of contention, right? And it's not in a way like with Rodgers, we expected it year after year, but we had so many years of contention, right? We would come into a new year thinking, well, this should be an extension of last year, the year before. Certainly liked what I saw from the Packers last year and Jordan Love, but not 100% sure that we could expect it again, but we are expecting, we're hoping for contention. And I watch games from around the league, the Jags, the Patriots. The Patriots look like they might never win another football game. The Jets, right? That fan base, I think a little misguided, a little delusional, but we're all as fans on one level, misguided or delusional. Fan is short for fanatic. They thought, well, we got a really talented young wide receiver, really talented running back. We improved the offensive line. Aaron Rodgers is coming back healthy. We should be able to go, no, you look like you stink. You're 2-6. It's hard to win in this league. The Falcons are really talented. They got blown off the field by Geno Smith yesterday, right? It is hard to win in this league. So while the Packers certainly could have played better yesterday, certainly could have made fewer mistakes, it's been a little bit of a theme through the first 7 games, I'll take the win over the Houston Texans. Oh my God, I'm not going to lose sleep over issues that we hope that they can correct. I just really like hearing from coaches and players. Man, it's hard to win in this league because the older I get and the more football I watch this season, I'm reminded, it's really hard to win because there's a lot of teams that think that they should be winning more than they are, right? I just taking winning for granted in the NFL is not something that I will do until Jordan Love becomes the next Hall of Famer and we can come to expect it every Sunday, for the next 10 years. But we're not there yet. Maybe we'll get there in a couple months. I don't think so, but it is hard to win in this league. Look around. There's a lot of fan bases like, why aren't we winning more? So I'm not gonna lose sleep over a couple style points lost against the Houston Texans. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. We're reacting to a huge win over, I don't want to say a rival Texans team, but both teams were certainly behaving as if that felt like a divisional game yesterday. Those two teams were charged up and they did not seem like they liked each other. It was great theater and a huge, huge win for the Packers, who now go to 5-2. So I want to react to that tonight. Take your calls at 608-321-1670. I will come to you even in the first segment in about 10 minutes if you're ready. So if you want to grab a phone line and be one of the first out of the chute, we'll do one segment, fit in a couple calls. After our first break, I'll try to get as many callers in before 4:35. Peter Bukowski will join us from the Locked On Packers podcast, and then a lot more space in hour number 2 to take your calls and your reaction from yesterday's win. Kind of a funny game yesterday. Hilarious, even. I would say hilarious. I brought this up a couple of times over the last few weeks. Like, sports are not just, I'm happy if my team wins, sad if they lose. There's a whole spectrum of outcomes and emotions you can get from sports if you are open to it. Now, if you're someone who's like, I'll only be happy when they win and I'll only be upset when they lose, I think that's kind of a boring way. I think at the heart of it, I'm happier when my team wins. I'm sad when they lose, but there's a whole range of other outcomes that you can get. Certainly happy that the Packers won yesterday. I kind of got to laugh. It's a little hilarious yesterday that the Packers stole a game at the end that they basically dominated wall to wall. The Packers basically dominated that game wall to wall. They never gave C.J. Stroud an inch. They never gave that Texans offense 1 inch of breathing room. Joe Mixon got hot for a while, but then they started snuffing him out on those 1st and 10 runs too. The Packers dominated yesterday's game wall to wall, and yet they ended up needing to steal it back at the end, right? So what's the expression? Stealing victory from the jaws of defeat. That's true, except the Packers they put this game in the jaws of defeat, and then they pulled it back out. Kind of a hilarious game flow and a hilarious result. That doesn't happen in baseball, by the way. That doesn't happen in basketball. You can't dominate a baseball game or a basketball game wall to wall, fully, offensively and defensively, only to need to steal the game away at the end. That can only happen in football. And it's a reason, a long list of reasons why football, I think, is our favorite sport in the United States. And you could argue, well, I like baseball better. Okay, but the television ratings and the revenue, it doesn't lie. Like, football is the thing. And I think there's lots of reasons. But one is the Packers can outplay their opponent for 4 straight quarters and still almost lose the game. Can't really happen in other sports. The Packers dominated the Texans physically, pushed them around, talked smack, moved the ball, and yet we're down a point or two. I don't remember the exact score, with a minute 50 to go, or a minute 44, I think, to go when they got the ball back. And thank God they did get the ball back, and thank God they won. Thank God they drove down the field, and thank God Brandon McManus was able to hit a 45-yarder, because imagine the things that we would be talking about today. This is often where my brain goes when the Packers win a game, or when any of our teams win a game. I'm often left thinking, okay, what types of conversations would we be having today if our team didn't win that game? Like, imagine if the Packers had lost that game, the song and dance that we'd be doing right now. It's like, well, yeah, they lost, but I mean, the Texans didn't beat the Packers. The Packers beat the Packers, which I hate that line of thinking. I was talking with Zach Heilprin earlier today, because at a certain point, and I saw some folks tweeting about this yesterday, right? You can't claim, well, our team is really good, they just get in their own way a lot. Well, then they're not very good. Then they're a team that's really talented, but not very mature. Doesn't execute at a high level. The Texans didn't beat the Packers. The Packers beat the Packers. I hate that. Types of things we'd be saying today if the Packers lost. Oh, yeah. Well, yes, they lost, but I mean, look at the defense. Took a huge step. Look at how dominant the defense was yesterday. The pass rush finally showed up, which would be great, but it would have happened in a loss. And of course, we'd have to sit here and talk about the special teams. And we're probably still going to talk about the special teams today. I don't think Rich Bisaccia's unit, especially the punt return unit, both Nixon and Jaden Reed with the bad gaff. Nixon's was a little bit worse because the result was bad, but Jaden Reed, I mean, it could have cost him 15, 20 yards in field position if he had just played that punt correctly and let it go over his head. Yes, the Packers could have won by more, but they needed that game so badly, I didn't care. And again, to replay Matt LaFleur's comment that you heard a part of the intro, like, style points don't always matter. You'd certainly like to win more comfortably, but you'll take a win, especially over Houston's Texans teams like that, and a quarterback like CJ Stroud.
You can never take winning for granted in this league, and as sloppy as some of the play was out there today, I love the effort of our guys, the resiliency of our guys, the ability just to respond to some adversity, I think is huge. Obviously, that's a playoff caliber football team. I think one of the best teams in the league, and we'll never apologize for winning.
They needed that win, mostly because their defense set them up so well, and because they had a lead, because they were at home, and it just felt like a game that they had all along. They needed that win. They needed that win to keep up with the Joneses in the NFC North. Right now, the Vikings lost yesterday, which is great, but I don't see the Vikings or the Lions going on a losing streak anytime soon. And the Bears are a solid outfit. They're getting better every week. So they needed that to keep up with the Jones. They also needed it to move to 5-2. And I'm going to play this cut one more time. This is from Ryan Wood last week, who's kind of outlining when he joined the show all the different ways in which this game was important. This is a line of thinking that we touched a little bit on Friday. I described it as the Packers need to reach cruising altitude. I don't want to be fighting and white-knuckling around 500 or slightly above. I actually want to ascend. I want to get to 5-2 with a chance to go to 6-2 against Jacksonville. Here's Ryan Wood, USA Today Packers News from last Thursday's show.
I think this is just such a pivotal game for the Packers because here they are at 4-2. And for a year and a half now, right, even all last year, they didn't really have much separation in the win-loss column, right? They kind of just floated. Last year was a lot of catch-up, trying to get back to 500 and then trying to get yourselves in the playoffs. They haven't. They're 4-2 now. They're 5-2 if they win this game. They go down to Jacksonville after this. That looks like 6-2 because the Jaguars are awful. They're just a terrible football team. You start to build that momentum, but you got to win this game because the difference between 5-2 going to Jacksonville and 4-3, it's pretty significant. So getting this win to me, it's just so pivotal in this early part of the season.
Completely agree. If they were blown off the ball to begin the game last night or yesterday afternoon, then okay, you could feel that pit in your stomach. And it was the same pit that we had in our stomach against the Rams when they had led most of the game and it felt like they were winning and dominating most of the game. And then the other team had the ball with a chance to ice it at the end. The defense got off the field and gave the Packers offense an opportunity to steal it back. And then against the Rams, just got off the field on 4th down to secure the game. A few things we need to cover tonight. I want to talk about Jordan Love and his interceptions and the good plays too. Kind of the yin and yang of Jordan Love's performance, not just yesterday, but the season up until this point. I want to talk about the defense. I want to talk about the players that popped. No doubt we'll get to the special teams and whatever you want to address with your phone calls as well. I'll give you a thought on the defense, and then we'll take a couple calls. I think the defense was the reason they won yesterday's game, and Jordan Love made some nice plays, and certainly some offensive players. Matt LaFleur made some nice calls, and the offense got the job done. McManus at the end made the kick. But the Packers defense won them the game yesterday, and they won them a lot of games last year, or put them in position to win a lot of games last year too. I was talking in a group chat yesterday during the game, and someone made the point. It's like, you know what? This team, more often than we admit, more often that we talk about, has been a running team, defense-led team over the last year or two. And certainly Jordan Love and the offense have had, performances where they've racked up points too. But a lot of games have looked like yesterday's game, where the defense kept it in them, or kept them in it. The defense kept the game in a winnable spot, right? Huge stop to begin the game, backed up against their own end zone. And that was such an important stop, given how much juice and how much energy there was in that building. Jordan Love throws that interception. If the Texans score 6 right away, and now the Packers are down 7-0, I'm not saying the crowd would be out of the game, but it certainly would have sucked a lot of life out of the building. And it felt like the defense getting a stop there kind of helped keep the place charged up until the Packers get the ball back and continue on with the game in its normal state, get some points, and again, kind of start pushing the Texans around, start dominating the Texans a little bit. They forced 4 straight punts to start the second half and got off the field with 1:44 left in the fourth quarter and gave the Packers offense a chance to go down and win it. There's so many players on this defense playing really, really well right now. And as we talked about on Thursday, the last piece of the puzzle was the pass rush. And it finally showed up. Just pressured the heck out of CJ Stroud. Finished 10 of 21 for like 80 yards. He was frustrated yesterday. Threw his helmet going to the bench, was whining for a flag at one point because he ran out of bounds and I think ran directly into TJ Slayton, who's a very large man. It's not like TJ Slayton pushed CJ Stroud. If I were to sprint into TJ Slayton, I would bounce off him too. Jair and Nixon were great. I'm not a film expert, but Evan Williams always seemed to be around the ball. Quay Walker gets hurt. Eric Wilson comes in and just starts obliterating people. And shout out to Kenny Clark, who I know a lot of Packers fans have been frustrated with. You notice how they tightened up against Joe Mixon in the second half? Joe Mixon started to eat up a little bit in the second quarter, and in the third and fourth quarter, they stopped Joe Mixon on first down, which allowed the pass rush. And Rashawn Gary, who's now all of a sudden heating up over the last couple of weeks, that pass rush really got after CJ Stroud. But it was the run defense in the second, third, fourth quarter, especially the third and the fourth quarter of the second half, that really started to put CJ Stroud in that Texans offense in a position where the pass rush should get home and make plays. Let's take a couple calls before our first break. 608-321-1670, talking Packers Texans. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Hello?
Hey, Piano Man, how here, Grant?
Hey, what's going on?
Man, I'm really, really happy with the way the game ended yesterday. I still have a few things to pick your brain about.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay still?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, good. First of all, not to disparage, I know you talk with people from PFF, and I always love hearing their perspectives on things. There's a YouTuber that I really like, Bukowski Productions. You may have heard of him. Really good Packer YouTuber. He was breaking down the PFF grades for yesterday's game, and somehow Evan Williams had a 57.0, which is slightly below average.
I saw people talking about that. That must be that he was leaving guys open in coverage and they just weren't targeted, because it was nothing with plays that he gave up. It must have been positioning. And I don't really pretend to know how PFF grades work, at least on a deep level. It's really hard to just use the eye test watching Evan Williams yesterday and say he had a below average game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I remember Bass was talking that he had 7 total tackles, 4 stops, and he did not allow a single completion. Yet his coverage grade was 41.7, which is quite a bit below average. And they must be attributing to the fact that he quote unquote left people open in space. I don't know. I vehemently disagree with that grade. they gave him.
He was around the ball. He was always around the line of scrimmage too. Like he was everywhere. It seemed like everywhere the ball was going, Evan Williams was somehow in the neighborhood, ready to make a play.
That 2-point stand, that play that he
Huge.
made on C.J. Stroud, wrapping him up, that was gold.
Yeah, those little plays. And that's what's funny. And Evan Williams made a couple of those plays last week too. And Piano Man, Ryan, I just got to keep moving because we got a long list of callers. I don't, it's funny. We got a PFF guest on with Bill tomorrow. And maybe Bukowski can address this a little bit at the bottom of the hour. Grades can be a good starting point. And if I really want to learn how they're graded exactly, I guess maybe I'd understand it a little bit better. I just watched the game yesterday. Evan Williams was everywhere. And him and Xavier McKinney as a duo. I saw a stat today, and maybe I'll dig it up here over the break, where it was like they've allowed fewer something or other. I don't know. Again, I'll look it up here. Let's take another call. Maybe I can find it. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Clemhead Mike.
Hey, Clemhead. Packers victory Monday. Nice to hear your voice.
Yeah, it's a great day. Vikings lost and Packers won. It's just the world is brighter and shinier.
It is. It does feel a little bit better today.
Yeah, when the Packers played, they played kind of a less than ideal game yesterday, but they still beat a very good team. I'm not going to complain about anything. I know there's a lot to nitpick, but I haven't nitpicked the thing. And Evan, man, maybe his first job was to support the run and to spy on Stroud. Maybe coverage wasn't his job one yesterday, so that could explain his poor grade too.
And I don't know, like, how do you factor a coverage grade versus this? I don't know. He's been great. I found the stat, but the stat that I was looking for, Tyler Brook tweeted this out. The Packers safety duo of Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams has more interceptions and pass breakups, 15, than catches allowed, 8 this season. Collectively, they're allowing a 16 passer rating when they've been targeted.
Yeah, they held an all-star quarterback to under 50% and under 100 yards. I'd say the defense did a superb job, and I have not criticized anything about the Packers that being stupid on punt return. But other than that, I think they did a darn good job, and no more nitpicking, folks. Let's just enjoy this and move on.
Yeah, I'll take it. And I know some Packers fans, Clemhead, I appreciate it. I know some Packers fans will be like, they didn't even play their best and they still won. Like it's a badge of honor. Like it's something to hang your hat on. I'd rather they just play their best. But at the end of the day, it's a win. And with the Vikings losing yesterday, now the Lions are a problem too. Like these are teams in the North that the Packers are going to have to contend with down the stretch. But keeping the Vikings from completely pulling away and going to, what would they be, 6-0 because they already had their bye, and instead at 5-1, at first place in this division, still in play for everyone, including the Bears, who again, I don't know how good the Bears can be, but they're getting better every week. And that's a real team that could absolutely steal games against the Vikings, the Packers, and the Lions down the stretch, and other NFC contenders as well. Let's take a quick break. If you're on hold, stay there. I'll get to your calls next. It's the Wisco Sports Show.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I mean, it's one of them games where, it just shows how resilient this team is. Every game is not going to be perfect. Obviously, a lot of that is fixable, the problems that we had today. But, man, it always feels good when you don't play as good, but you still get a win.
It's Josh Jacobs after yesterday's game. I'm glad the Packers won. I would have preferred for them to make a couple fewer mistakes. Like I don't want to celebrate. I don't want to wear it as a badge of honor. It's like, hey, we didn't even play good and we still won. I would just prefer for this team to play their best or close to their best more often, because I don't think they played nearly their best against Philly. I don't think they played nearly their best against Minnesota. I don't think they played even close to their best against Los Angeles. Yeah, the season is young. Jordan Love missed time with an injury early, and guys have been in and out, but for the most part on offense, they've been relatively healthy. At some point, I want to see this team be a little bit more consistent and play a little bit better week to week, because at some point, you don't get to say, well, the team's really talented and they're really, really good. They just shoot themselves in the foot. Well, no, if you shoot yourself in the foot and you make a lot of mistakes, then you're not that good of a team. You're just a really talented team. I think this team needs to grow up a little bit, needs to mature a little bit, needs to execute at a little higher level, and that's fine. They're still really, really young, and there's a lot of season left. But, I mean, that was such a winnable game yesterday that they almost let get away. And I'm glad that they didn't. And I don't want to sit here and complain and bellyache about an almost loss, because it wasn't a loss. It was a win, and one that should be celebrated. I want to hear players say, man, we're a little frustrated. We feel like we should be dominating in a game like that. I don't want it to be worn as a badge of honor. Hey, we didn't even play good and we still won. It's like, well, I don't know if that's something that I want to puff my chest out about necessarily. Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers, coming up in about 10 minutes. Time to get some more phone calls in. Wisco Sports Show, 608-321-1670. Hello, who's this?
Grant, it's Q.
What's going on, Q?
Let's keep the good vibes rolling. Packers are on a winning streak. Badgers are on a winning streak. Bucks are about to destroy Joel Embiid on Wednesday in the tip-off.
Is Embiid going to play? Like, Chris Middleton was announced officially by Shams today. Well, Middleton's not going to be in there for the opener. And then, like, we still don't know if Embiid and Paul George are going to play, by the way. Like, Nick Nurse couldn't give an answer on that today. So I know we're all losing it about Middleton, but the Sixers might be without their two best players.
I would imagine Joel plays, but Paul
probably
does not. That would be my. But I called in to talk about the Packers, and per usual, Grant, we don't quite see eye to eye. But I'm going to ask you a question. What is the script for this team to win a game?
Jordan Love makes a couple huge throws. They run the ball really well. Yards after the catch, getting wide receivers involved in the running game, and the defense plays like they did yesterday. This has been a defensive and running team a good amount of games the last year and a half. This hasn't. Jordan Love has not driven the bus in a majority of these wins. There's a lot of good defensive performances and a lot of good rushing attacks too.
I would say we have 5 wins, and we've used a different script for each of them, which is pretty impressive. And there's another team that's been winning in unconventional ways this year, and they've won the Super Bowl the last couple of years. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, and I think they're getting the benefit of the doubt because they have been there before. But what year did Patrick Mahomes win his first Super Bowl with the Chiefs? I think it was in year 2, right?
Yes. Year one they lost in the AFC Championship game because Dee Ford lined up offsides.
So I'm not saying it's an exact like cookie cutter model, but I'm saying there's some similarities, and I'm getting excited. And like, I've been pretty critical of Matt LaFleur in the past. I loved that he gave Jeff Hafley the game ball yesterday. It shows a lot of maturity and confidence and leadership, just to give somebody credit, because it was pretty clear, like you said, the defense won the game for us yesterday, and it's amazing how much Jeff Hafley has been able to make this defense improve in not that much time. And I'm excited because I believe him when he says they're still installing stuff, and I think that we haven't seen them peak yet. So
no, I agree. And I think yesterday's game was another step in the right direction. I think the offense and the defense are both trending in the right direction. I want to see the offense play cleaner, more consistently. That starts with Jordan Love not putting the ball in harm's way as often. Look, I don't think the occasional interception kills you. I watched football the rest of the day yesterday. A lot of interceptions, right? Interceptions happen. They can't be backbreakers, and they can't take place in a game like yesterday where it's like, hey, man, your defense is dominating. You're running the football pretty well. Like, this is such a winnable game if you just don't jack it up. Yesterday was not the type of game where the ball needed to be, put in harm's way a ton. The Chiefs comparison is an interesting one. Yeah, the Chiefs get the benefit of the doubt because they've now won 3 Super Bowls and might just employ the greatest quarterback of all time. But I get the comparison in that can slow it down, run the ball, and play behind the strength of their defense. They smothered the 49ers yesterday, who might be cooked. It was just announced that Brandon Ayuk blew his ACL, his MCL, and maybe more. He's out for the rest of the year. Might not be a clean and easy comeback next year. It might take some more time. The Niners vibes are horrible, horrible, horrible. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This is Hector in Alaska.
What's going on, Hector?
Not a whole lot, Grant. Just figured I'd chime in a little, in the football mood since my Ravens play tonight.
Yeah, who do they have tonight? It's 4 teams.
The Buccaneers.
That's right. That's going to be a fun game.
Yep.
And then the other Chargers, Cardinals. That's the type of game they normally bury as like the third game at 3:00.
Right. Yeah, I'm very excited that we have a good game to watch. I don't know. I'm a little nervous, of course, but that's just because it's before the game. But yeah, I was watching the game yesterday. I did have to work. So if you work where I work, turn the radio off for a second. But I was watching the game in the kitchens. It was like propped up and, sanitary under a bunch of stuff. And it was very exciting. It was nice that you had a kicker that could kick past 35 yards to win the game for you.
I'm by the way, on the kicker, Hector, hey, give me another 30, 60 seconds. What else you got? Because I got to get to a guest, but I want to make sure you get all your points out before I start rambling and steal your time.
Yeah, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to myself. At the beginning of the year when I was driving back from Packer camp and I called you, I told you Tucker Kraft would be the shining star. No other tight end held a candle to him. And that catch yesterday was just spectacular. It's nice to see that Jordan Love is not scared to throw the ball into a tight window if he has to. Something that Rodgers didn't do, but I guess Rodgers is fine throwing picks now. So maybe it's just in the air this season.
I don't want to completely rewrite history on the last few quarterbacks. Like everyone's describing Favre now like he's Jameis Winston, and that wasn't true. And Rodgers, it's not that Rodgers would never throw into tight windows. Rodgers made a throw just like the one that Love made in the Super Bowl between two. Like Rodgers made those throws too. I like that Jordan Love zinged a couple balls yesterday, most notably those 2 passes in the red zone, the 2 touchdowns. Those were the differences in the game. The Texans couldn't do anything in the red zone when they got down there other than run the ball a little bit with Mixon. Jordan Love made a couple huge throws in the red zone. CJ Stroud didn't. And by the way, on McManus, I'm not going to say his Packers career was going to be made or broken by that kick yesterday. But can you imagine if he missed it? It just would have cast a pall on everything. He misses that kick and then is excellent the rest of the season. We still have an air of nervousness every time he goes out there. Just like Christian Watson dropping that ball against the Vikings, right? It just set a tone for the rest of the season. And I'm glad that McManus knocked it through and we can kind of proceed with a kicker that we don't feel awful about, which hasn't been the case for the last year and a half. Peter Bukowski, Locked On Packers, going to join the show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
You know, a lot of things didn't go right offensively. We just really didn't get in the rhythm early. You know, missed some ops. Thought we ran the ball really well, but just weren't clicking in the passing game, and you know, just couldn't find our rhythm. So you know, gotta go watch the film, figure out what went wrong, and you know, try to just get better, and you know, actually do get better. There's no try, and really just get back to practice, and you know, just work harder.
That's CJ Stroud after the game yesterday. I can't see his face. We're just listening to the audio, so I can't tell you what facial expressions or what body language he was using after the game. He certainly looked frustrated, especially in the third quarter, the fourth quarter, when Texans offense was consistently going 3 and out. Maybe they get one first down, but then the Packers defense would force a punt. CJ Stroud was constantly under fire. But even when he had opportunities to deliver balls, I mean, it's not like it was Will Levis in Tennessee. Like, CJ Stroud had opportunities to make a couple of throws, and for the most part, he just didn't. And he looked frustrated. At one point, he came to the sideline and threw his helmet. And I was texting with some buddies during the game yesterday. I never want to see my quarterback come to the sideline and throw a helmet, ever. Wide receiver, running back, lineman, I get it. Quarterback's a little different, and maybe this is an old man take. It's probably a cousin to Colin Cowherd's I don't want my quarterback wearing a backwards hat take. I guess it's similar. I never want to see my quarterback come to the sideline and throw a helmet. It's a bad look. That signals to the rest of the team, this guy's frustrated. This guy's tilted. This guy doesn't have answers, right? And for a player in a leadership position, for a player that everyone else is looking to lead them, both as a leader, but also on the field. Like, you're the one who's taking the snap. You're the one who delivering the ball and making the throws and making the reads. That was a bad look. There was a play where he got pushed out of bounds, not the play where he got licked by Jair and Nixon. They really popped him. And Stroud popped right back up, signal for the first down. There was another play where he got pushed out of bounds, I think by McKinney. It was more of a sturdy ushering out of bounds. And he basically ran right into TJ Slayton, and Stroud was looking around for a flag. I never want my quarterback flag baiting by the sideline. I never want him throwing his helmet. The Packers defense frustrated CJ Stroud yesterday, for sure. Rashawn Gary in this pass rush, a big part of it. I thought Kenny Clark has been I don't want to say a streaky player. I think he's been a trendy player his time in the Packers. He'll have these 3 or 4 game stretches where you'll see him heating up a little bit week by week. And then he'll peak and have a couple monster games. And then he'll quiet back down, and then he'll back up. Kenny Clark was in the backfield. He was disruptive yesterday. I think the most impressive part or a really meaningful part of the Packers' defensive success, let's call it, yesterday, was not their coverage. Their coverage has been impressive this year. I gave you some of the DVOA numbers last week about Jair and Nixon as outside cover corners. The success from the safeties, Evan Williams and Xavier McKinney, that's been evident all season long. We went through those numbers last week. The linebackers have been making good plays. Players like Carl Brooks and others along the defensive line have had good grades for interior defensive players. The pass rush showed up. I don't even think that was the most meaningful part. You know what meant the most to me? You know what jumped out to me most from the Packers defense yesterday is Joe Mixon got white hot in the second quarter and was running the ball everywhere going into halftime. And then coming out in the third quarter, the Texans tried to establish the run on first down, and the Packers weren't having it. They adjusted. They did something. They changed up something. They refocused. They realigned. I don't know what they did. But Kenny Clark, Eric Wilson, Evan Williams, a couple names that just come to the top of the mind, all over around the line of scrimmage, making explosive plays and forcing 1st and 10s to be 2nd and 10s and forcing CJ Stroud to have to sit back there in obvious passing situations, because the pass rush could be playing great. But if you're giving up 5 yards of carry on first down, you're never forcing your opponent to have to sit back there and deal with the pass rush. And that was an adjustment you could see from the second quarter to the third quarter. An obvious adjustment was made and a big improvement. Peter Bukowski, maybe he'll join us. He had something come up, so I'm hoping he joins us before the end of the show, and if not tonight, at some point later this week. Always good time to talk Packers with Pete Bukowski, so it's not like it's time sensitive at all. 608-321-1670, a couple of texts that I want to get to. Bobby in Menominee said, Eric Wilson playing well kind of pisses me off, considering this is his 3rd year on the team. He was a starter for the Vikings and should have been playing over slow Devondre. Well, and Campbell now has basically completely bottomed out with the Niners, and I've seen commentary and stories written by Niners people where it's like Campbell is old, he's slow, he just can't hack it anymore. Now, I don't know if Eric Wilson had to play a full game, if he had to lead the charge from that linebacker position from the first snap. Who knows how it would go? But man, Didn't he look awesome as basically a bench player or a relief pitcher yesterday? Quay goes out and Eric Wilson has to come in and account for 2.5 quarters, right? So he comes in relief. He brought so much juice. He had a couple huge hits. And again, I don't know what his grade was. I don't know if you took all of his snaps and graded him in coverage and run defense and in pass rushing. If you added it all up, I don't know. Maybe he was a net negative of a player yesterday. But the 3 or 4 plays where he made a big play, again, stuffing the run. There was a play where CJ Stroud threw a little bit of a check down and he was just there to lick the pass catcher right away. There were 3 or 4 plays that really jumped off the screen from Eric Wilson. And coming in for relief for Quay Walker, I'll take that. I'll take that. I think you're coming out way ahead with a performance like that. Now, I don't know, last year was last year, and I think I've been pretty consistent on this. Not everything needs to be Joe Barry wouldn't have done that. The Packers defense gave the offense plenty of opportunities to win games last year that were squandered. Now, I like that they made a change at defensive coordinator, change in messenger, a change in attitude, a change in approach, because I just think Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst and this contending Packers team could take a bigger swing and try for something a little bit more inspirational than Joe Barry. But let's not act like this defense was a total meltdown train wreck last year. They were in just about every game other than the Bucs game and the Panthers game, but the Panthers stink and the Packers were still able to win that game. So not everything needs to be an indictment on the previous defensive coordinator. We could just talk about the good things they're doing now. And their personnel has gotten a lot better as well. Just a big injection of talent in both free agency and in the draft. This text, I believe from a first-time texter, which we absolutely love, says, first time, long time, Chris from Osseo. Love this. Says, can you explain to me how the ball went out of bounds on the kickoff and why did we start at the 25? So this didn't make sense to me either. And Chris, I'm 99% sure I'm about to give you the correct answer. I could be wrong. But the Packers on that field goal, Kingsley Enagbare gets stuck with the personal foul, right? Or the unsportsmanlike conduct, whatever it was. There was some pushing and shoving. And honestly, I think that flag was thrown because the referees were feeling, we got to get a hold of this game. Because there was a lot of jawing. You could tell that the guys were charged up. I don't think that works. I don't think it works in the NBA. I don't think it works in the NFL where these refs strategically throw a flag on a play or on an exchange that may or may not be flag worthy, but they use it as an example to, hey, let's get control of this game. Let's plant our flag. I think that's mostly why Enagbare was flagged. It's not like he did something that was egregious that wasn't met from the Texans player, whatever. So it's a 15-yard penalty, and I think it was enforced on the kickoff return. So the Texans just kick the ball out of bounds, which means the ball goes to the 40, and then you enforce the 15-yard penalty. It goes back to the 25. And I saw some others pointing out, well, if the Texans kick a touchback or they kick it in the landing zone, and you're able to cover the ball, even if you kick a touchback, the ball goes to the 30, you back them up 15 yards, then they're at the 15. I don't think they intentionally kicked it out of bounds. That was just an awful kick. It just worked out that way. So they assessed the 15 yards after the return, but there was no return. The ball just came out to the 40, so they end up at the 25, if that makes sense. I'm 90% sure that that's why that happened, Chris, and I appreciate the text. I'm just connecting the common sense dots. I suppose maybe there was some idiosyncrasy or something else that happened. Rock and Rick, quick text, and then we'll go back to the phones. Says, as an owner, thank you, you need to tell Rich to have his punt returner stand on the 10-yard line and don't ever step back to catch the punt. It's a very, very, very simple thing, Rock and Rick. And it's something that us simple fans say at home all the time. I've heard my dad say it a dozen times. You stand on the 10, and if the ball goes over your head, you let it go. Oh, that's so rudimentary. That's such a caveman approach to fielding punts. Really? Because I feel like every punt that's given the Packers issue could have been solved by that rule of thumb. If it's in front of the 10, you field the punt. And if it goes over your head, let it go over your head. Let it go over your head into the end zone. And maybe it wouldn't have made the difference because the Packers had the ball. It's not like Jaden Reed's decision cost the Packers a possession. It just put them in kind of crummy field position. And luckily, Daniel Whalen came to punt yesterday because he really kept that game in a neutral state as long as possible before the Texans finally drove down and kicked the field goal. They shot themselves in the arm a little bit with their clock management at the end, and maybe that's something that we can talk about. Let's take a call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Tony,
Hey, Tony.
from Texas. You know what? I never knew Hector from Onalaska was like Aaron Rodgers, calling his own shot. Hector's his own biggest fan.
Yeah, he was talking. He was patting himself on the back for some takes. He was right. Tucker Kraft was popping in training camp, 100%.
Yeah, Roger-esque. Hey, speaking of Rodgers, I don't know if it's possible to get Ken Ingalls on. I don't know if this LaCroix Butler situation is tarnished him from your show or something, but I'd love to get Ken Ingalls to talk about the cap hit if Rodgers gets cut.
If Rodgers gets cut?
Can you see them bringing him back next year?
For the Jets, you mean?
Yeah.
I feel like Rodgers at this point is going to retire, which sucks.
Why? Grant. He's due like $34 million, I think, guaranteed money.
I suppose.
Something like that.
I suppose, yeah. It's just the Jets stink.
I cannot see him retire.
And the vibes look
no one tells
awful.
Aaron Rodgers what
and he's
to do.
getting beat up.
That is true. Hey, you know what? We've been hard on the Lambeau fans, you and me. I think Lambeau has not been exactly a house of horrors for other teams. I love it that a fan pushed Nixon or threw a beer on Nixon. That's awesome. That's badass. Props to that guy.
Yeah.
Lambeau brought it yesterday.
Yeah.
And I got to give props to Stephon Diggs.
Why?
I want an idiot like that because I love an imposing idiot player to stir things up with our team. This is like the old days back in the 80s and 90s. They would get in these fights, these random arguments. That game had a playoff feel before it started. I was fired up.
Sure. Jair did the same thing. And Jair, Tony, I appreciate it. Jair was taking some crap on Bill's show earlier today. You guys, Jair played awesome yesterday. He didn't allow any receptions to Stephon Diggs. He was physical. He laid a lick at one point to CJ Stroud around the first down marker. Jair was great. I thought Stephon Diggs came across like a total knob yesterday. And maybe we could talk about that coming up. Let's take a quick break. Maybe we can come back and catch Peter Bukowski, the Locked On Packers podcast. We'll keep talking about this game. Plenty more time for your calls, but we got to get a break in.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Wisco Sports Show, celebrating a Packers win over the Texans. Very interesting win. Lots to still get to. I'm glad Tony from Texas brought up Stephon Diggs because I have a lot to say about his antics. I don't know if they were antics. I just have a lot to say about Stephon Diggs. So we'll get to that in hour number 2 of the show. Joining us now of the Locked On Packers podcast, the podcast for Packers fans that know what happened. They just want to know why and how. And of course, he writes at The Leap as well, a newsletter that I'm sure he would tell you he would love for you to subscribe to. It's Peter Bukowski. Pete, how are you today?
I'm enjoying pulling all the receipts from last weekend, yeah, it's been a good Monday for me personally.
You told me last week, I copied and pasted this text. You said, I have backed myself into a corner this week. I need the Packers to win. To which I said, there's you backing yourself into a corner on the internet. No chance. Doesn't sound like you. Let's talk about all the different Packers-Texans takes that you planted your flag on that now you get to celebrate.
Just airing me out on live radio. This is great.
You ended up being right.
No, I did. I'm just teasing you. The point that I was trying to make, really, and then I had to pull back some spring takes that I had. But the point that I was trying to make originally was, if CJ Stroud is so great, why is the offense not good? And we know that when if a quarterback is really playing as well as everyone says, like we were witnesses to this in 2018 with Aaron Rodgers. Like, if Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers, why does the offense feel so hard?
Tight.
And what I kept saying was, I don't care how he's playing on third down. I don't care how he's playing when he's pressured. Grant, how many downs do you get to get a first in normal play?
3.
Okay. How many is third down?
1.
That leaves 2 other downs. If you stink on first and second down and are only good on third down, you cannot be a good offense. And that's exactly why they are not a good offense. Now, the Packers had CJ Stroud in a straitjacket. They clamped this Houston Texans offense on third down. I think he was 2 of 7, did not complete a pass that led to a first down on a third down until that final drive. If Kingsley Enagbare doesn't go off sides, he goes the whole game without completing and converting on a third down throw. It's incredible what the Packers did to him. And it is proof of what I was saying. If you cannot succeed on first and second down, you cannot be a good team, because you will run into teams like the Packers, like the Vikings. They played 2 good teams this year, really. The Bills, sort of, but the Bills gave that game away at the end with 3 passes at the end to give the Texans, the time to win that game. But they got shut down by the 2 best defenses that they faced this year because of what happened on third down. You cannot be good if you are only good on third down. It's just not a way to play NFL offense. And we saw it on Sunday.
And you were right. Well, and the Packers have been good in coverage. Like, we knew a lot of the parts of this defense were great. What I was talking about on Thursday and Friday, I'm like, well, if only the pass rush can show up, then they can truly have like an all-around elite performance against a good or a talented offense, whether they're good or not. And like, we could waste time talking about Bobby Slowick. I'd rather just talk about the Packers half of this.
Fraud.
What did they do yesterday?
A fraud.
Maybe on fraud watch. Green Bay zone, so respectfully a fraud. What did they do to generate more pressure that they hadn't been doing?
Yeah, respectfully, of course, Green Bay zone. It was actually a lot of the same stuff they've been doing. They were just better at it. And, it's one of those things where I think we underappreciated the adjustment period that it would take. Rashawn Gary with Joe Barry at his best, he's wide 9, he's flying through guys and just wanting to go right through them. A little more condensed splits here for these defensive ends with this scheme. You want to try and stop the run in addition to rushing the passer. And it has not led to great productivity for Rashawn Gary. He had 6 pressures on Sunday because they just moved him all over. And what Jeff Hafley did that I think was not surprising, because we knew he had the blitz packages. It was the way that he deployed them. And it looked almost like a Brian Flores defense, where every time they got the Texans into a long down and distance, a must-pass situation, they were showing heavy pressure, 6-man, 7-man pressures. And I think Matt Steinman had the stat where fewer than 20% of their snaps did they bring a pressure. And yet they blitzed on something like 60% of their snaps. Grant, you might be saying, how do you square those 2 numbers? Well, because if you remember, and you're a little young for this, but in like the early 90s, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they would zone blitz teams. and they would bring 4 and they drop that defensive lineman. Well, the Packers, these simulated pressures where you're really only sending 4, it's still a blitz. Like Xavier McKinney's sack comes on a blitz, technically, but it's only a 4-man pressure. So they're not sending extra bodies. It's you're playing with the rules of an offensive line and going, okay, we know if we show you this look, you're going to slide protection this way. It's going to be a 6-man protection this way or whatever it is. And we're going to have an unblocked guy coming on the backside because we're not actually sending pressure to that side. We're actually sending pressure from this other side. And how many times did they have a free rusher on CJ Stroud on Sunday? I mean, it felt like half a dozen or more times. I mean, Rashawn Gary got clean on that first third down, unblocked. He runs a cross dog pressure. That's usually a double middle linebacker pressure or double inside linebacker pressure. Adrian Cooper came first, and it's big old Rashawn Gary coming in behind CJ Stroud. They probably had to change his pants after that drive because you don't expect to have CJ or Rashawn Gary coming unblocked. I screwed up the joke, Grant. Dang it.
Right up the middle.
Right up the middle. So look, this is a different version of this team. And I said on Friday, I had Ollie Connolly on the show, who's a great, he's, we call the coaches scheme lords. He's a scheme lord content creator because he just wants to dive into all the nitty gritty, the X's and O's. And we criticized Jeff Hafley because we were like, Evan Williams really should have been playing sooner. Adrian Cooper really should have been playing sooner. You really should have gone to some of these simulated pressure looks in week 2, week 3, when it became obvious they could not rush the passer with 4, given the current roster and the way you wanted to play. But I opened the show after Jeff Hafley said what he said on Friday, which was, we're in our infancy with this defense. We're bringing it along slowly. And that is a thing that a coach whose defense is not playing great can say. And that works to like week 10. And then it's like, okay, well, this is just who you are. But then they have a performance like this and you kind of go, all right, maybe he's just right. Like maybe there is just an evolution to all of this. And they find the rhythm of the twists and the stunts and the kinds of things that they wanted to be doing all along.
Can you wait 2 minutes through this update and do like 3 or 4 minutes on Jordan Love with me on the other side, or do you got to go? You can say no.
No, we can do it.
Okay. I have so much that I want to ask you about. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going to mute you for a sec. We'll come back. Zach Heilprin Sports Update. Just a couple minutes with Pete. I don't want to ask too much. We'll be right back.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, the Packers soon going to be turning their attention to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is their opponent coming up on Sunday down in Florida. But when Coach Matt LaFleur met the media earlier today, many of the questions were still about yesterday's walk-off win over the Texans, especially about a standout defensive performance that saw the Packers hold C.J. Stroud to just 86 yards passing. One of the game balls handed out by LaFleur in the locker room after the game yesterday went to defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. LaFleur was asked today why he gave it to his first-year DC.
Ultimately, somebody's got to put the plan together and call it. And I thought, just considering all the circumstances, a really explosive offense, you had 2 drives start on the 11-yard line, another drive start on like the 45-yard line. There's just a lot of short fields in there. And to be able to hold somebody to 22 points, considering all those circumstances, I thought he was deserving of the game ball.
Again, the Packers will face off against the Jaguars on Sunday. Kick is at noon. Turn to the Badgers. They're getting ready for a visit from number 3 Penn State on Saturday night. Will mark the second top 4 team playing at Camp Randall this year, with the first resulting in an Alabama blowout. But Wisconsin's won 3 straight coming in and is just a 6.5-point underdog. Kick on Saturday is at 6:30.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
When a company only does business in Wisconsin, that's Wisconsin Strong. Rural Mutual provides all lines of insurance, including commercial, farm, home, and auto. And your premiums stay right here to keep Wisconsin strong. Local agents, local underwriters, local claims adjusters.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Bucs won't have Chris Middleton to start the season. ESPN reported this morning the veteran going to miss Wednesday's opener against Philadelphia as he continues to rehab offseason ankle surgery. Bucs trying to bring him along slowly. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heilprin.
It's a team win. It's a 4-quarter battle. It wasn't perfect. Definitely was not perfect. A lot of mistakes, but, we found a way to win, and that's what it's all about. That's what it comes down to, is fourth quarter and finding a way. And that's what we did.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Hour number 2, we're going to get back to your calls. I want to take 5 minutes to just kind of rip Stephon Diggs a little bit, respectfully, not personally, rip professionally what he did yesterday. Peter Bukowski is here, and I feel a little bad because I asked him on live radio. It's like, hey, can you hang around for 5 more minutes? Which isn't really fair to him. That's kind of like asking when you were younger if a friend could sleep over in front of your parents, giving them no choice but to say, not that that ever worked on my parents, but Peter, I do appreciate you. Thank you. Because I want to ask you about Jordan Love. Couple picks, but also a couple incredible throws. So how do we balance those two things?
Well, okay, so I stayed through the break. Indulge me for 1 second.
Yes.
For those not watching on stream, it's a picture of me interviewing Jordan Love on Radio Row. Mike Clemens took that photo, and it is great to see Mike back on the beat, doing what he's doing. He's one of the best in the business, and I just want to shout him out because I know it's been a long road for him, and so it's great to see him backing at it.
He was with Jerry Kramer this weekend. He sent us a bunch of audio of good old like Jerry Kramer with Johnny Carson stories today. I'm like, God, Mike. So
Mike's the best. Okay,
thrilled to have him back.
The Jordan Love roller coaster. I joked on Locked On Packers that we got to start calling him Six Flags or something because this is, you just kind of got to hold on with some of this stuff. And Ben Solak at ESPN called it playing heavy metal because it's just sort of like it's going to be loud and some of it's going to be awesome and some of it's going to be just noise, right? And like I feel like that's a great way to describe Jordan Love. He's on pace right now for 45 touchdowns and 24 interceptions or 26 interceptions, something like that. It's just like a ridiculous stat line. Eric Edholm at NFL Media described that as the 86 Marino, which is also true. And I think I was wondering about this. If Love had been the successor to Brett Favre, would we be wailing and gnashing our teeth and rending our garments over the interceptions now the way we are post Aaron Rodgers? And I understand it doesn't quite fit, right? Because the league has changed and the world has changed and offenses have changed. But would we think about interceptions a little bit differently if we hadn't seen the most risk averse quarterback or the guy that was the best at throwing not interceptions ever, like literally ever, and it's not close, before Jordan Love? Like he played on balance a 98% good game on Sunday. It's 2 throws. And if you watch the first one, they just like the JT O'Sullivan breakdown of it is great because he's just sort of like the Texans just got him. Like they have the perfect coverage. They kind of bait him into it. And that's going to happen. Like this is the NFL. The defense gets paid too. This was the 2nd ranked defense by DVOA. You get a little unlucky that the ball goes right into the hands of the linebacker. You get a little unlucky that on a play where you have Christian Watson open over the middle of the field, Daniil Hunter beats Zach Tom for one of 2 pressures all season that he's given up. Like some of this stuff is a little unlucky. The interception last week where Bo Melton just slips. The interception against the Vikings where it goes through Luke Musgrave's hand and Romeo Dobbs' hands. Like there's just been some unlucky stuff here. And I'm just not worried about it. This is a guy who he leads the league in interceptions through 5 games, but he has the 10th most turnover worthy plays by Pro Football Focus grading by rate. So, and we're talking about 3.9% turnover worthy play rate. Like that's not a crazy number. I think he was at 2.7 last year. So we're talking about what, like a throw a game. It's really not that hard to imagine getting a little bit better luck in some of these situations. I don't think he's going to throw 20 plus interceptions this season. And I think if the Packers are asking him to throw so much that he does, that's probably a problem. I do wonder though, Grant, they got a kicker now, it looks like. This defense, after what they did on Sunday, does that rein Jordan Love in sort of on its own, where he doesn't feel like he has to make every play because the offense can't sustain or they can't win games if he doesn't do that? I kind of hope that it does, because you only want to modulate him like 10%. Like you don't want to pull back that line. You want him to do the thing where if he's going to throw 3 interceptions like he did against Minnesota, go out and throw 4 touchdowns. Like he still had a positive EPA on Sunday, throwing 2 interceptions. That's how good he was. And he made 3 or 4 of the best throws you will ever, like if you say he's going to throw 5 fewer interceptions this season, but the throw to Tucker Kraft is not going to be there, I'll take the interceptions. Like those high level throws, the throws no one else can make. The throw to Jaden Reed that Jaden Reed didn't catch, a 50-yard rolling to his right, absolute dime over the shoulder, into the bucket, whatever cliche you want to use. I want him to keep making those throws. Now, that was not a dangerous throw, but it's an aggressive throw. I want him to be aggressive. And Grant, I loved what he said after the game. I'm not gonna just be checked on Charlie. Like, I'm not just going to do that. You can't live like that. And I think in this world where you have all these too high defenses, if you can find ways to beat those defenses, you have an opportunity to create explosives where, like, look at the Chiefs offense. They can't create explosives at all. They have Patrick freaking Mahomes. But they can't do it because they number one, don't know the players. And like, I don't know. I guess Mahomes doesn't want to chuck it down the field. I don't really know. Like, they're doing fine, right? Like, they're undefeated. I'm not going to criticize them, but their offense is like, he's average depth of target. He would be setting a record in the next gen stats era for the shortest average depth of target in like 15 years. That's crazy. They have Patrick Mahomes. So I would much rather, from an aesthetic standpoint and from a winning standpoint, I would much rather say, let's just chuck it and duck it.
Lastly, was Romeo Doubs right? Because on that final drive, I kind of really only wanted the ball going to him. I'm like, I trust him in a situation where a batted ball up in the air kills you, ends the game, or a dropped pass on a third down kills you. I kind of only felt great about the ball going to Doubs on that final possession. So I don't know if you have thoughts on the hierarchy of wide receivers, but where do we stand on this skill group that we all agree is deep, but like, how do we best utilize all these guys?
Romeo Doubs to me is it's funny. He plays receiver, but at times he reminds me of like a really, really good tight end, like a Travis Kelce like tight end, because it's 3rd and 6. He runs a slant. Like, it felt like every play he ran was a slant in this game. No, that's not true. He caught that gorgeous deep out on the first play. He caught that speed out to get them out of the end zone. But every other catch, I think, were slants. And slants against Derek Stingley, like a really good corner that he's winning in contested situations. It's just little. It's like, okay, little 8-yard A-dot, bang, glance post. Those are, like, we think of sort of like a tight end in those sorts of circumstances. Like, that's what Travis Kelce is for the Chiefs. On 3rd and 6, he just goes and makes a play. And I think that's what Romeo Doubs is. Down to down, play to play. He's not going to tilt the field for you. He's not going to break the game open for you. That's what Christian Watson is there for. That's what Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks are there for. I mean, Wicks has the big play to start that drive on the field goal, 3rd and 2, catch, and turns a 5-yard play into a 12-yard play. That ends up being a huge play. He gets the touchdown. So I don't think Doubs is ever going to be that kind of dynamic player, but he's sort of like if Kendrick Bourne were really good, or if Juwan Jennings were just the featured player in the San Francisco 49ers offense. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities there, which is like on 3rd and 6, the guy that they kind of want to throw to is Juwan Jennings. And I feel like he
might be the featured player before too long. At this
he's going to probably be this week. And so like, I think you could build a whole offense around Romeo Doubs. The beauty for the Packers is they don't have to.
They don't have to. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for seeing break. You look tan. Have you been vacationing?
It's just probably good lighting in here. I don't know.
You just have a glow. You have an aura.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Pete. For
it's
all
being right about CJ Stroud. I got the glow.
Yeah, you. Yesterday's result was good for you online. You're not having to fight battles today that you otherwise would be. So Thank you for the time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for airing me out on live radio.
Okay. So I thought about that. Have a good one, Pete. I thought about that as like, am I betraying a confidence by reading one of Pete's texts? It didn't reference other analysts. It didn't reference anyone. It was basically Pete saying, hey, I've kind of talked a lot of smack on the internet this week. I kind of need the Packers to win. Otherwise, I'm going to hear it. That's always true. That's never not true for Pete. When have we ever looked at Pete's Twitter and been like, man, he's kind of tame. Like, he's not really picking any. Pete, you're always picking fights. Always. You're always mixing it up. You're always hanging yourself out to dry online. So I'm sorry, Pete. And I think he's like 90% just messing with me, but there's also 10%. It's like, okay, Jesus, Pete, I won't read your text on the air. All right, back to your calls, your thoughts. They're a little clunky with the way that Pete joined us, but I'm thankful to him for sticking through the break and just doing 1 or 2 more questions because I don't want to waste. If you're already in your studio, Pete, you're already joining in, just give us our money's worth. 2 more questions. It is appreciated. All right, back to your calls and thoughts on the Packers win yesterday. We haven't really dug into the Jordan Love interception thing. Talked about the defense back at the beginning of the show. But we could talk about Jordan Love and his interceptions. We could talk about the kicker. I need to go on a little bit of a personal rant at some point before 6 o'clock about Stephon Diggs and how I think he just kind of was a child yesterday. And I'm pretty consistent. I don't want children on my team. It's not to say that they all need to be veterans. I can have youth on my team. I can have young players on my team. I can't have them acting like children. And Stephon Diggs, who's a veteran, kind of had a childish day yesterday. So all of that is on the board and anything else you want to discuss. 608-321-1670. Let's rip through some calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Speaking of getting into fights on Twitter, how are we doing, Grant?
Vagabond John, you're no stranger to that. You're normally picking them, though. You don't have people barreling into your mentions. You're the one stirring it up in other people's mentions constantly.
That's how it used to be. Now it's kind of flipped. I was in Chicago all weekend, and I was out gallivanting around and told the story a little bit this morning, but it was just funny. I'm kind of watching when you're bar crawling on a football day. You try to go in between commercials to the next bar, right?
Smart.
And I'm in like bar 6, and I pull up Twitter for the first time of the day. I've got like 15 notifications of just people just adding me. I'm like, maybe this is what it's like to be Pete Bukowski. And maybe that's why he blocks so many of us on Twitter.
Hey,
okay.
To be fair to Pete, he took way longer to block Cone Roller than he should have. So I'll give him credit on that one. Very many people have given Cone a much shorter leash to give him heck, and Pete stood and fought that battle for a while.
And I'm not blocked by Pete, so I'll put that in my Boy Scout badge. But hey, a couple things on the Packers. Called in last week to give Jeff Hafley his flowers. I have to follow it up today and say he's earned it, man. I mean, he is matching stride for stride the Joe Barry defense of last year, right?
I knew that's what you're. I knew that's where you were going. I saw that coming a mile away.
20.6 points per game, 20.6 points per game. I mean, it is incredible. Last year, 10th in scoring defense in the NFL. This year, 10th in scoring defense in the NFL. So you got to give his flowers where it's due. Obviously I supported my guy, but my favorite part of Pete's call, by the way, just now, him mansplaining to the caller audience, because I know this is kind of their favorite subject, about running a zone blitz scheme where you actually drop a defensive lineman into coverage to confuse the offense to get an open blitzer like Xavier McKinney's done a couple times this year. I just really wonder if they really analyze that the same way they did the one time Preston Smith got caught in coverage. I wonder, like, when they hear Pete say that, like, do they think back, maybe it does work sometimes, and maybe the one time it doesn't work, I shouldn't use that as the only argument for a whole year.
You have your fastball still, but I got to say, you're tipping your pitches. I can see these coming. I know what's coming out of your hand when you're delivering these pitches. This is a good fastball. You're throwing 99 and you're hitting your spots. You're tipping your pitches. I can see them coming.
Last thing, I love the way this Packers team is playing, and I think true in any sport, you have to take advantages of the opportunities that you're given. But I'm watching these games kind of with not a sense of fear, but like I wasn't super confident going into that game, and I'm watching it, I'm enjoying it, having a great time. When they're just dropping touchdown passes, though, just straight, there's no way the defense did anything right. They just dropped the ball in the end zone, and then we end up winning by just a couple points. This Packers team, man, they might just have it. Like, this could be the year. It takes a lot of luck to win a Super Bowl, and I think this team has it, man.
Sure.
This team, whatever's happening, the other team is dropping punts. They're dropping passes in the end zone. Love is having passes that could be intercepted getting dropped. We have overturned interceptions that probably should be, and then they're not. There's a lot going on with this team, and I think that's what it takes when you look at Mahomes and you look at Brady and their Super Bowl runs. There's a lot of the ball has to bounce their way, and the ball's bouncing away, and Matt LaFleur's taking advantage of it. So go Pack, go.
Go Pack, go. That's a good call, Vagabond John. Appreciate you fitting a lot in the most efficient way possible. Darnell the Chum commented really early on in the live stream. I'm trying to get this one part of the screen. There we go. I'm going to put it on the screen. This is what Darnell commented, and I agree. The NFL is king. This team could be 7-0, or they could be 1-6. Great teams win despite mistakes. Darnell, you're right. And to Vagabond John's point, the Packers have gotten lucky at certain junctures. I think they've also gotten unlucky at certain junctures. That's just kind of the way that it goes. I'm not really interested in sitting here rehashing a luck-unluck ledger. Like, that doesn't really interest me. I thought they were unlucky and lucky in yesterday's game. I thought the Texans made some mistakes. The Packers made some mistakes. At the end of the day, look, the Packers defense dominated C.J. Stroud for a much longer stretch. The Houston defense got to love too, but really from start to finish, the Packers defense was the best unit on the field yesterday. I'm not going to feel like the Packers got away with one when I think they had far and away the best unit and best performance of any side of the ball. There was some shakiness by both offenses, shakiness with the Packers special teams, but I think the most impressive unit start to finish was the Packers defense yesterday. And I think that was the driver of the game. And there's lots of noise and lots of other factors. But to Darnell's point, they could be 7-0. You could make a reasonable argument if you were go game by game that they could be 1-6, but that's most teams in the NFL. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Uncle Packer.
Uncle Packer, you're having a great Monday.
Oh,
I can hear it in your voice.
great
You're always
weekend,
having a
huh?
great day.
I am. I'm having a great day. I'm driving around the Packer bug. You know, I got my little yellow bug, the top down. October 21 in Wisconsin. It's just a great day. You know, it was a great. I started to freak out at the special teams and the interceptions, but I've never felt such a comfort in the Packer defense. It's been such a long time. We always had a pretty stellar offense, but we sucked on defense. And our defense really comes to play. And when you can hold a team, when they take over, 1st and 10 after a big interception on your 20, and you can hold them to three, that's a win.
Well, and that's
a definite win.
I don't know that I agree with you that their defense, I don't think their defense is as bad last year as many people say. But set that to the side for a second, Uncle Packer, and just hint at what you said. The stop that they got after Love's first interception to force a field goal, it was huge because it was a swing of 4 points, but also it kept some of that energy in the building. The crowd and everyone was so fired up at kickoff. And if the Texans immediately get a pick and immediately get a touchdown, some of that energy gets sucked out of the building. And I think the defense getting that early stand kind of allowed the game to stay charged up and the crowd stayed in it. It kind of helped them notch a win after an early pick that I think had a lot of Packers fans. Maybe that quieted down folks quite a bit, and the defense kind of charged them back up with that stop.
Yes, and I really believe that stop was important. And also, when they had that long drive to go ahead with that field goal, you felt so comfortable when you had Aaron Rodgers come out and you knew that he was going to get you in field goal range. And I felt that same way with Love. I don't know. I just felt like after that first passes, that's okay. Let's just get it. And two great passes to Romeo Doubs, a run, and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing. I like to win in any way. That's not an ugly win. And we might have been able to beat them by more. I think we were toe-to-toe just as good a team as they are. And I'm really happy about this year so far. There's going to be some losses. We're not going to go with a 2-loss record through the year. But this was one that we came back from, and I'm so pleased and happy about my Packers.
Amen, Uncle Packer. I love that. That's a good call. And style points look, I want the Packers to play better. And week over week, I want to be able to trust them a little bit more to avoid mistakes and to avoid inconsistencies and to avoid gaffes. I'm not really worried about style points yesterday. I watched so many good teams. San Francisco, their fans totally think they should have more wins. The Jets, they think they should have more wins. The Patriots have let a couple games get away that I think were right there to be won. And their coach is in hot water because he called his team soft at the podium yesterday in London, the Jags. There are plenty of teams, plenty of fan bases around the league that would kill to have some ugly wins. So I'm in a vacuum, yesterday's game, I'm not angry about it. There's so much to celebrate in yesterday's game. But moving forward, I want to continue to see this team grow and mature, really, because they have all the talent. I think the scheme is there, the talent is there, the depth is there. I just need to see this team mature a bit where they're executing at a little bit of a higher level. They're having fewer mental mistakes, fewer penalties, fewer drop passes, those kinds of things, right? 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant.
Hello?
Grant?
Yes.
It's Mike.
Hey, Mike.
From Whitewater. Hi,
Oh,
buddy.
Mike. Hey, Mike in Whitewater. What's going on?
Hey, I was there yesterday, and two things I want to get into.
Yeah.
One, in the past, they kind of bashed the gold tickets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all I heard was how great from the coaches and players, how great the fan base was up in Lambeau yesterday, how charged it was. So that's one point.
100%.
And then I'm still confused. It sounded like after the penalty, the unsportsmanlike or whatever, they kicked off at the 50. So there's 15 yards right there on that. Then they kicked it off out of bounds, which should come to 40. But then you said they brought it 25 and charged them twice. So that's 30 yards they lost on one play.
I can't remember. So, and maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention. Mike, that's a good call. And I want to continue to address some of those things on the other side of the break. I'm just a little bit behind. Blame Pete. He showed up a little late, which is, it's better than him not showing up at all. Anytime we have with Pete. I just want to make sure that we stay on schedule so we can get to everything that we need to before 6 o'clock. I don't know what happened on that kickoff. This dynamic kickoff thing is a mess. There's too much messiness. There's too many things that need to be explained, which would be worth it if the product got way better, right? It would be worth it to learn all these rules and situations if the kickoff was, what it's supposed to be, dynamic. It's not. And also another thing, if the NFL wants teams to return the ball more and wants that play to be more exciting, They got to tell the officials to take it easy with the flags. You can't call a holding or a block in the back on every single return. Or teams are just going to stop bringing the ball out, and they already barely bring it out. So I am not anti-dynamic. I'm not anti-trying things. I'm not anti-changing some rules. But this new dynamic kickoff isn't having the intended effect. The kickoff's still boring, and now no one knows what's going on, myself included, as it's been made abundantly clear over the last hour and 20 minutes. 3 minutes, we'll continue more of your thoughts, more of your calls next on the Packers.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Yeah, our goal is always to go score. That's our goal. Like, they did a good job of stopping us, didn't get in. So, obviously we didn't pass the ball well all day, right? So it wasn't good all the way around. We ran the ball well. Thought Joe did a good job of running the ball. And, we needed to pass it. It was not good enough, starting with the protection. If we can't protect, and that's going to be difficult for the quarterback to make the plays.
That's D'Amico Ryans. They did make it very difficult for C.J. Stroud. And Joe Mixon got hot in the second quarter and had some nice runs in the third, but credit to Jeff Hafley and the Packers along the defensive line. They started to play really well against the run in the third quarter, too, and stopping the run on 1st and 10, and if necessary, 2nd and 10. That's crucial to allow your pass rush to actually go get after the quarterback. You have to earn the right to rush the quarterback, right? They earned the right to rush the quarterback in the third and the fourth quarter. C.J. Stroud was kind of able to ride behind Joe Mixon, and he would hit some strategic passes too, but Joe Mixon was the driving force in the second quarter, and then the Packers adjusted at halftime. They came out at halftime and were dialed in. Defense got a stop. Offense got a touchdown. Like, could not have started the second half better, and then nothing happened until the end. I thought coming out of half, it's like, man, this team looks buttoned up. Whatever they went over at halftime, whatever tweaks they made, man, they're about to cruise away with this game, and then nobody scored. And then all of a sudden, the Texans drive down, kick a field goal. Packers got a little lucky to, was that Vagabond John's point, talking about luck, I think, and how the Packers have gotten a little lucky this year. I think most teams experience their fair share of good and bad luck. It's what you do in the neutral situations, and it's what you do with those good luck plays. I think the Packers have done their fair share and fared pretty well. D'Amico Ryans and Bobby Sloak, why are they throwing on third down? Unless you're throwing to pick up the first down. Unless you're throwing that ball and saying, we are throwing to end the game. Like, that's the goal. We're throwing to either end the game or to kick the field goal. We have no interest in running the clock. We have no interest in making Green Bay take their final timeout. We want to end the game with the ball, not in our hands, but on the foot of our kicker. Then I would get that. But they didn't throw that pass that was ultimately incomplete and good coverage on Eric Stokes, who's in at the end of the game. But even if it was complete, it would have gone out of bounds and stopped the clock, and it wouldn't have been a first down. So the Packers taking advantage a little bit of, I think, a miscalculation or a misplay by C.J. Stroud and his offensive coordinator late. If you're going to throw there, which I don't know if that's a great idea, but if you are going to throw for the kill shot, because it doesn't make any sense to risk an incomplete pass if the reward is not, oh, we're ending the game right here and now, which that's what the reward would have been had they thrown beyond the sticks, which, again, they didn't. 608. Oh, by the way, we're going to do the Monday mailbag at 5:50. So if you have any questions, they don't have to be sports related. It's actually probably better for the show, for entertainment value of the show, if they're not sports related. I will read them all. I will answer them all. So if you want something really stupid to be broached on the show, here's your opportunity. Just send me an email, grantbills21@gmail.com. And I retweeted the tweet. If like, how do you spell your last name? Well, I'm on Twitter @Wisco Grant. You can go find the tweet. grantbills21@gmail.com. The Monday mailbag coming up in about 20 minutes. So give me your best and finest questions. I will address and answer them all. All right, back to your call. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, calling from Tony's neck of the woods out here in Arlington, Texas.
Cone Roller is visiting the Lone Star State. Now, that's Cowboys country, right? Houston, how far away are those two cities? Probably like 6 hours or something ridiculous. The place is huge.
Yeah, no idea, and I don't really care. But already making some mental errors like the Packers. Lost one of my hotel room keys, but, we'll recover.
Yeah. It's not whether or not you make mistakes. It's how you overcome them. The Packers overcame their mistakes yesterday. I have no doubt that you can do the same, Cone.
Yeah, and I, in football, I don't know if I really agree with luck. I think it's just when preparation meets opportunity and you take advantage of it.
Yeah. I think in most games it comes out in the wash. Both teams make a couple mistakes. Both teams get a couple of opportunities, good bounces of the ball. It's what you do with the rest of the game that decides the game.
And boy, do we have a kicker now? Can we officially say we have our guy?
Yeah. Thank God he made that kick, because imagine if he misses that. I still think he's fine and the Packers have their kicker, but it would just cast this aura. Like, it would just cast this cloud over the next couple games. Just like Christian Watson's drop against the Vikings. That's what it made me think of.
Yeah, I agree. And it was cool seeing him do the Lambeau leap afterwards. And, I think this could be the start of the championship DVD. McManus hitting that kick, doing a Lambeau leap.
Look, and I think this goes along with what Vagabond John is saying. Championship teams and teams that go on runs, they got to have an it factor. Look, I can see the different twists and turns of the championship DVD, right? Malik Willis comes in, wins 2 games. Jordan Love comes back, has a great second half against the Vikings. They've been building ever since. Like, yeah, I can see it. This is we're in what, about halfway through the championship DVD now? The pieces are there.
It is there. And one thing, Romeo Doubs, great game yesterday, made some big-time catches. Still kind of weird body language, though. I hate to be the body language police, but, he just doesn't look like he's excited to be out there. He's almost looking down at the ground after he makes a big catch.
The thing is, I don't know that he's ever looked excited to be out there. I don't know. I almost have to go back and watch. Like, I got to go back and watch the Cowboys game or other games where Romeo Doubs has had big performances, because I don't know that he's ever looked that hyped up. He's just really stoic. It's a tough one to read. And by the way, don't ever apologize for being the body language police. Body language matters. We can't criticize Aaron Rodgers for having crummy body language all those years and be like, not to be the body language police. It totally matters, 100%.
Yeah, that sucked to see the Jets last night getting killed.
They just can't score. I just want to see this offense get hot for a couple games.
I don't know. I might agree with Tony. I think, get Ken Ingles on and see what happens, because I think Rodgers is done, sadly.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, if I was Aaron Rodgers, thanks, Cone. I enjoyed Texas. If I was Aaron Rodgers, like, well, why would it be better next year? I think everyone's tweeting that Rodgers is washed. I don't think Rodgers is washed. He's older. He's not as mobile. And he certainly doesn't have the dynamism that he once did. But Rodgers can sit back in the pocket and deliver the ball. That arm is still there. The problem is it's not really the offense that he likes to run. And by the way, at this point in his career, what other conclusion can we draw? Well, McCarthy ran an offense that wasn't any good. And then at the end of LaFleur, he ran that. This is what Rodgers wants to do. Rodgers has a lot of control. The Jets gave that to him. And it hasn't worked. But I think it's a little unfair to say, oh, if you were the Jets, you wouldn't have taken a shot on this. If you ran the Jets, you're like, wait, we can have Aaron Rodgers? No. I'm not handing over control of my organization. We'll stay with Zach Wilson. Like, no, of course you trade for Aaron Rodgers and you try to make it work. It just hasn't worked. If Rodgers, line up under center, do the traditional, watch Jared Goff and watch Kirk Cousins and watch other quarterbacks who have to rely on their mechanics and have to rely on sitting in the pocket and delivering the ball on time and on target. I think Aaron Rodgers could absolutely do that, 100%. But it's a lot of timing stuff and back shoulder and, arcing it down the boundary and trying to fit it in a tiny little window. And again, that stuff's great, but it can't be the meat and potatoes of your offense. It's got to be the seasoning. I keep bringing this up because I think this is a good way to contextualize this idea. If I was an offensive coordinator, I wouldn't want to rely on my wide receivers and quarterback connecting on those types of throws more than 4 times a game. It can't be multiple times every drive. And I know that that's what Rodgers had with Jennings and Nelson and Jones. Those days are gone. Those guys aren't around. And he's not the same player. But he's still got as talented of an arm as anybody. So sit in the pocket and use it. But that's not really the offense that they've installed. And I don't think it's unfair to draw the conclusion that that must be the offense that he wants, because he's had a lot of say in all of this. I don't know why Rodgers would get to, have certain teammates and have certain things be the way that he wants. But the Jets are like, no, but we'll be choosing the offense. We'll be dictating the offense. That wouldn't make any sense. So I'm not trying to be unfair to Rodgers here. I'm just left to assume that this is the type of offense that he wants to run. And I think he's burying himself in the team just a little bit. And now, middle of the year, it's too late to change anything, but it's just a bummer. It's a bummer because I wish the Jets were a little bit better. The league is more fun when Rodgers is winning and relevant, and he's still going to get talked about, but now he's going to get talked about in ways that people don't like. The drama and all this other stuff. By the way, the Packers played yesterday. We've talked about this for too long. 608-321-1670. One more call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Justin from Eau Claire.
What's going on, Justin?
I just want to start by calling out this defense is the same as when Joe Barry ran the team through 7 weeks, because takeaways are a lot different. They had 18 all last year, and they have 17 currently.
Sure.
Third down percent on defense is better. They're stopping teams a little bit more often, which is always good. And the strength of schedule. I mean, the 3 best teams they faced this year have been the Eagles week 1, who had a fully healthy receiving corps, healthy team.
A lot of talent. We could, Justin,
great.
we could debate. That's why I say I don't know that the Eagles are an awesome team, but they're a talented offense with lots of weapons.
Yeah, that's all I want to say is I feel like it's unfair to compare these defenses. Other than that, I want to talk about Jordan Love's interception.
Yeah.
I love the guy. I like that he's their QB, but man, some of these throws he makes are just, I don't know what he's thinking half the time.
Well,
and
go ahead.
Or you go.
No.
I was going to say, not even like some of the ones yesterday where it was a high throw and just a bad throw and double coverage where he didn't see the guy, but even some of these throws that he makes that aren't picked, like I think it was was it against LA that he's falling off his back foot? He threw it was against the Cardinals, off his back foot, threw to Dobbs, and he caught it and turned it into a touchdown. But what happens when that throw is picked?
Yeah. So this is, and I'm having a difficult time. That's a good call, Justin. I appreciate it. I'm having a difficult time really settling because I feel like we need to criticize Jordan Love for being fast and loose with the ball. Do we need to kill him for it? No, but I think there's a due amount of criticism. I also think, to Pete's point earlier, if we took away the frame of reference of Aaron Rodgers, we just watched for 15 years the most turnover-averse quarterback literally in NFL history. historically, like not he didn't throw a lot of picks. Like no quarterback has ever thrown fewer interceptions than that guy. I think that colors our opinions on this as well. It's funny because I was watching Niners Chiefs after the Packers. Mahomes threw a pick. Like Mahomes will hang one out to dry. I just think some of those plays are baked in. When you're throwing the ball, there's a range of outcomes, and even a good offense with a good quarterback occasionally is going to get intercepted. Now, we cut out the reckless throws, cut out the throws into triple coverage, cut out the throws that don't need to be made. The Packers defense was playing so well yesterday, and the Packers were running the ball pretty well too. It's like, all right, hold the phone. If we just operate a very simple offense, get the ball where it's designed to go, you're winning this game. The way that the defense is playing, like the way this game is trending, if you just don't jack it up, this game's there to be won, right? So yesterday, and then he threw that ball to Wicks down the seam on the final drive, and part of me thinks that was a slight throwaway, and he overthrew him, so maybe because Jordan Love was being pressured, they ran an all-out blitz, right, a cover zero on him, and the ball just needed to come out. You can't take a sack, and he didn't, which was great. I don't know. I truly don't know. I'm trying to find the balance of being critical enough because I think it's disingenuous to say, well, they don't matter. Interceptions don't matter. We're just used to Aaron Rodgers. They absolutely matter. But I also think that is, to a degree, the price of doing business. And Jordan Love made some unbelievable, the touchdown to Kraft, the touchdown to Wicks, the throw to Reed before halftime, which he dropped. That was 3 points, which has been under-discussed, that play. He threw, to start the final drive, that throw to the boundary to Dobbs was unbelievable. Stingley just made a great play. Like, that ball was in a 5-inch window, the only place that it could go, slightly outside, without any risk of interception. Love made some amazing throws yesterday. Stroud didn't put the ball in harm's way at all, but didn't really make any next-level throws. And it was those couple next-level throws, especially the 2 touchdowns in the red zone, that was the difference in the game. So it might seem a little basic to just say, well, it's the price of doing business. But yesterday, I think to a degree, that's accurate. And Matt LaFleur kind of hinted at that. Now, you can't say, well, 4 interceptions a game is the price of doing business. No, but an occasional interception when you're being aggressive, that can be the price of doing business if all of the next level throws were there. And for the most part, they were yesterday. Let's take a couple minutes. Again, the Monday mailbag coming up at 10 to 6. If you have a question, doesn't have to be sports related. In fact, it's probably better if it's not. Email them to me, grantbills21@gmail.com. We'll continue the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
The Wisco Sports Show. Got a couple minutes, then we'll break. Wrap up the show with the Monday mailbag. If you missed Bukowski, he was Bukowski. It's great information on the defense. A couple of thoughts on Jordan Love's interceptions and how we're supposed to feel about all that, how we're supposed to deal with all that. And then Romeo Doubs and his place in the offense too. And look, I don't think Romeo Doubs should get all the targets and should be the number one feature wide receiver as maybe he thought when he left practice a couple weeks ago. I tell you what, I wanted the ball going to him on that final drive. Just let him get you the yards. Let him get you the tough yards over the middle. Let him get open. Let him make contested catches. Bad things occasionally seem to happen when the ball's sent to Wicks. Bad things seem to happen when the ball is occasionally went to Watson. It seems like mostly good things happen when the ball goes to Doubs. And that's kind of how the final drive went. And I'm not saying that I was right. I'm just saying that that's how I felt. I just felt that Doubs getting the ball was the way to go on that final drive. I trusted him more than the other guys. And that means something, I think. Matt and Eau Claire, he points out his text from last week. He said, his text from Friday at 4:21 said, how poetic would it be if the Packers win on a walk-off 45-yard field goal? Right down to the nut. Good call, Matt. This text from Bad Apple 71. It says, speaking of Jordan Love, his tight throws and mistakes, whatever you want to call them, watch yesterday's press conference. He spoke nicely about that. I thought the NFL is not about wide open receivers. It's about taking chances, putting it into places where you hope your guy can make a play. Anyway, the press conference yesterday was pretty spot on that question. I don't know that we played that cut today. A lot of calls, some time with Pete. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Offense winning despite all the turnovers. Backwards pass, Tucker Kraft, NFL. He said this is cut number 6. Receivers aren't always going to be wide open. So this must be what you're referencing. Bad Apple 71. This is Jordan Love yesterday.
It's going to be tight windows. You're going to fit the ball in there sometimes. And, I'm going to keep playing. I learn and grow from the mistakes, the interceptions, and just keep playing, keep moving on. But that's not going to ever, limit me. I got to keep going out there and being the best player I can for my team. So I'm going to always be aggressive. But there's always going to be those tight window throws.
Sometimes, yeah. I've also seen guys wide open a lot over the last year. Matt LaFleur's offense and the way that they've schemed certain guys, they just have a plethora of weapons too. Like sometimes guys are open. Yeah, sometimes it's okay to take the wide open throw 6 yards down the field instead of trying to fit it. Like that throw to Watson yesterday. All right, I see what he was doing. He just threw a bad ball. But I don't know that the throw needed to be made, given the flow of the game, given how your defense is dominating, right? Those are certain things. A little breaking news, by the way. Deebo Samuel's been hospitalized with pneumonia. He's got fluid in his lungs. George Kittle has a sprained foot in his day-to-day. Brandon Ayuk's knee is toast, and he'll miss the rest of the year. So the Niners might be dead. Oh, yeah, and they also have Christian McCaffrey, not that he's played a snap this year. And at this point, why would they play him at all? I'm going to push our thoughts on Stephon Diggs to tomorrow's show. Maybe I'll lead with it. Yeah, let's do that. I'll lead with my thoughts on what Stephon Diggs and Jair, all that beef that started before the game. Got real quiet during the game, and then Stephon Diggs had no problem talking about it more after the game. Funny how that works. So we'll talk about that. Short segment here. I want to take a break so we can come back and wrap up with the Monday mailbag. Some questions of yours that I want to answer. Send them to me, grantbills21@gmail.com. We'll wrap up the Wisco Sports Show next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Because the mail never stops.
Charles, I'll be writing to you. She's Got Mail. That's the name of the movie.
That's it, honey. There's never a let-up. It's relentless. Every day it piles up more and more and more, and you got to get it up. And the more you get out, the more it keeps coming in.
The Monday Mailbag, final 10 minutes of every Monday show. I will address your questions and concerns. They can be sports related, but I think it's probably funnier for the show if they're not. You can send me your question, and I will read them all. GrantBills21@gmail.com. We start with Michael. Says, now that inland trout season has come to an end, have you considered fishing the Madison Lakes? Lake Monona is fire for walleyes now if you go around dusk. No boat needed. I can tell you a few spots to fish from shore if interested. I don't know how I'm going to spend my limited outdoorsman time the next couple weeks. I want to go duck hunting with a buddy who invited me. I like grouse hunting because it's easy. You just go walk around. There's more to it than that, but at the core of it, that's all you do. I don't need a boat. Don't need decoys. Probably not Lake Monona. I might get back into ice fishing this year for the first time in a while because I live by a lot of little lakes, and those are easier to fish on foot, and I don't have a snowmobile or not driving my car out on the ice. Look, if my car goes through the ice, I'm ruined. But financially, my life would crumble. I can't. Billy, downtown Billy in Minneapolis, says, not sure if you have all the answers, but given your Catholic background, I figured you might be a reliable source for my question. Does Brandon McManus's game winner absolve him of his sins in the eyes of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? I mean, it can't hurt. Think of how many people he made happy yesterday. It can't hurt. I would still recommend confession and penance, but if the priest is a Packers fan, who knows? I can tell you this. If he goes to confession in Green Bay, that kick's going to go a long way. Maybe not in Houston, but in Green Bay. Jacob says, Percy Jackson or Harry Potter? I'm not familiar with Percy Jackson, but I love me some Harry Potter. Harry Potter's so good. God, Harry Potter's so good. It's underrated how good it is. Prisoner of Azkaban? Greatest films of all time. Tyler says, what was one movie you'd like to see the Brewers make in the upcoming hot stove season? Tyler in Massachusetts. Oh, God. What do they even do? I mean, trade Devin Williams, probably. Trade Devin Williams. Because I don't think he's worth the money anyways. I don't think any relievers are worth the money. Never pay relievers. This postseason should teach us that. So trade Devin Williams, and I guess I'll take whatever you can get back in return. So not a move of anything coming in necessarily, but going out. The Sean O'Connell. So do the Packers have been better if they kicked Rich Bisaccia upstairs, make him head coach, so he doesn't have as much to do with special teams, make Matt LaFleur offensive coordinator so you could just do X's and O's, which is his jam, make the end zone green and gold overall guy that kept Mixon from doing a Lambeau leap, because at this point, looks like a guy off the street could at least do that good of a job. And I mean, overalls, he threw a few nice blocks on a pro athlete, so that's something. I hope you get stupider questions. I think Rich Bisaccia provides more as a assistant head coach than a special teams coordinator. And for everyone who's like, whoa, do you think he told Jaden Reed to catch that punt? Do you think he told Keyshawn Nixon to let that ball go? If you're not coaching it, you're allowing it to happen. Is that a cop-out of an answer in a comment? Yeah. But refute it. Go ahead. If you're not coaching it, you're allowing it to happen. And also pick a returner already. Oh, Jaden Reed's too valuable. He's a great receiver. Keyshawn Nixon's literally your outside corner. He's your number 2 corner opposite Jair. Don't tell me about valuable. Figure it out. Pick one and stick with it. Mike, second cousin Mike. Is ready for deer season? Cameras have been lighting up until it got warm again. Bow hunting this weekend. My dad is sending me trail cam pictures. And my dad sometimes listens to the show. Dad, don't shoot a small buck. Wait. Be patient. Still 2 weeks away, or not quite 2 weeks, but 10 days away from Halloween. It's about to get hot. Thank you for the email, Mike. Ashton says, do you think with the great play from Cooper and Wilson that it might be time to bench or even deal Quay? No, and that's not to be dismissive of your question. I think Quay takes a lot of flack that he doesn't deserve from Packers fans, and I think Jair takes a lot of flack from Packers fans he doesn't deserve. Is he perfect? No. But I'd rather have a bunch of linebackers that I like. Just because Eric Wilson's playing well doesn't mean we need to get rid of somebody else. Duck in Holman says, Grant, when is The Other Guys 2 coming out? I hope never. We were talking about Bobby Slowick being a fraud and Aaron Rodgers being washed. Have you seen the Will Ferrell commercials for, what is it, Shopify? If he was an athlete and was turning out performances like that, I'd be like, is he washed? Is he just collecting a check? I think it's Shopify. Those commercials are not his finest work. I watched that. I'm like, oh, he might be over the hill. He might be in check cashing territory. And another celebrity who's absolutely just cashing a check. And I'm not going to pocket watch anyone. Good for you if you can get the money. I watch a lot of League of Legends videos on YouTube, which is not the point of my comment, but I get a lot of commercials for video games, a lot of ads in those videos. And the ads with Anthony Starr for Final War or whatever, the mobile game, anytime you see a celebrity doing endorsements for a mobile game, it's like, oh, it's kind of sad. It's a little bit sad. And again, if you get the money, like if you want me to endorse a mobile game, I will, but I'm not a celebrity. I don't have a public image to maintain. I'll chase a check. Are you kidding me? Zach, final question. Says, who is your favorite athlete of all time? This is an interesting one. I think it's a cop-out to say anybody other than Rodgers, Braun, Giannis. Rodgers because, he's unbelievable. Watched him my whole life. I still think he's made plays on a football field that no one else is capable of. And while that didn't always translate to winning at the highest level, I got so much joy watching Aaron Rodgers. And he's got a lot of love for Green Bay. So let's not act like he badmouthed the franchise or anything on his way out the door. Maybe a little bit, but the Packers played their fair share in that. They drafted his replacement. Okay. Braun, because he kind of defines an era of Brewers baseball and a return to relevance. And he was freaking awesome. He was incredible. And for a bunch of people my age, it's like, that's the jersey we had. We had Braun. We had Fielder for a while, but Fielder left, which I don't begrudge him for, but Braun was the guy. Braun was our guy. And Giannis because of what he did delivering a title, which was truly inspirational. I would be lying if I didn't give you those three names, but three outside of the box or one or two outside of the box names for favorite athlete of all time. Phelps, because I was a swimmer, and Phelps was freaking awesome. And Pre, because I was a runner. And Steve Prefontaine wasn't only an unbelievable athlete, but kind of an icon. And if you don't know the story of Steve Prefontaine, read a book. Very, very, very cool cat. Very meaningful in the world of distance running. And maybe, just maybe, expanded the sport in a greater sense than it would have otherwise expanded. Now, if you're sick of the running club running past your intersection as you're trying to get to work every morning, okay, well, then you might just have Steve Prefontaine to thank. And if you're annoyed with everyone in their 20s running a marathon, thank Steve Prefontaine. He was cool. It's not his fault that distance running has gotten kind of lame, but those are my two outside the box answers, Phelps and Pre. Tomorrow, I got to badmouth Stephon Diggs because we didn't get to it tonight, which is fine. If you missed Pete Bukowski, excellent information. Thank you for all your calls. Back tomorrow at 4.